Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Today I want to talk about the bounties. Bounties in One Piece, and I alluded to my opinion in previous videos, and I said in one of my previous videos that bounties are to be taken as a stylistic choice of the author, the mangaka Eiichiro Oda, to convey information to the reader in a way to not have it blatantly played out. Like, power scaling matters, and I think even Morge made a video about that. It's not like I based my opinion based on his video, but I think he elaborates really nicely on this. Why does power scaling matter? So I think it's one of his best videos. I think it's a video that also, well, it's a topic that applies not just to One Piece. It applies to Naruto, it applies to Bleach, it applies to Jujutsu Kaisen. And what is important to understand, common is that these have ranks. Blatant ranks. Like, it's blatantly thrown into your face. Most mangakas throw it into the face of the reader, the viewer. In the story Boku no Hero Academia, My Hero Academia, we have pro heroes, and heroes have ranks. They have a number, and they're pretty much, the number reflects how good they are. The number one hero is the best hero, the number two hero is the second best hero. How good they are, we might bring the point that some heroes in sheer one-on-one strengths are not reflected fairly in their rank, because some heroes may, due to their behavior, choose to not save civilians as much or engage as actively. But come on, like, in 9 out of 10 cases, it's a reflection of their power. And in Naruto, we have ninja ranks, we have Genin, we have Chunin, we have Jonin, and then we have the Kage, which are the leaders of the village. Pretty blatant. And they even have tests, they have exams where they are tested whether or not they can be promoted one rank up. And the story, even in Naruto, in the Naruto universe, at some points gives references what are the milestones for a character to achieve to be considered of that rank. What does a person gotta bring along to be of that rank? Like having at least one or two nature, being capable of at least one or two nature manipulations of chakra, the Rasengan being the standard one, just shape manipulation, but still a high ranking jutsu. So there are even ranks in jutsus. There are jutsus that are ranked D, C, B, A, or S ranked jutsu. So yes, ranks are there. We have it in the Bleach story where we have captains and their lieutenants. We have it in One Piece. We have admirals and we have bounties, because an admiral can't have a bounty, so they need to have a military rank to reflect their strength. And bounties help the readers. Bounties help to quicken up things, because you can't have a battle royale where you have all characters battle all characters. Like, everyone fighting everyone at the same time in every possible constellations, and seeing, okay, but that ability plays out better in that situation, and blah 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 blah. There's no time for that. And let's face it, One Piece is long. We passed the 1000 chapter mark quite some time last year, and we are now at chapter 1059. I hope I get that right. So I think chapter 59 is coming next, but the point is, and this is going to be regardless of current chapter, I think the topic of this video is going to be relatively timeless for the One Piece discussion. So anything and everything I'm gonna say in this video should still be valid even in half a year, because I think the story will not wrap up and finish up in that short of a time. By the way, I gave a prediction in another video that I predict the story to go on a few, maybe 2 or 3 more years, which would nicely coincide with One Piece 30th anniversary. I don't know if Oda feels pressed or wants to match his final chapter into the year of the 30th anniversary of One Piece. That I don't know if that's necessarily good if you force yourself to end a story on a specific date rather than have it go on up to the point where you as the author, the mangaka, feels that it's good. But that aside, that's not the topic today. The topic is bounties, and we got new bounties for quite a few characters. And in the spoilers for the next chapter, we got even more bounties. We got more bounties for Boa Hancock, for Blackbeard. We got bounties for this chapter for the Straw Hat Pirates. Aside from Luffy's 3 billion, we got the bounties for Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, Frankie, Robin, Chopper, Nami, all of the crew. We got bounties also last week. And looking at the last 50 to 100 chapters, we got the revelation of more bounties, and bounties of really important characters, more than ever in the story. So I want to remind, we got the revelations of the bounties for pivotal important characters like Whitebeard and Roger, and of course Kaido and Big Mom. And there would have not been much of an importance because both Whitebeard had been dead at that point, and Goldie Roger had been long dead at that point. So what was the necessity to reveal these bounties, especially not so far off from the defeat of Kaido and Luffy being appointed new emperor and his new bounty along with that? So of course it's to set the stage and to set the reader and give the reader a certain mindset and know, okay, this character is this strong, this character is this strong, and now Luffy is this strong. I made the point, what would have been if Luffy would have gotten a bounty higher than Kaido, Kaido's bounty being 4.6 billion and something. Luffy having defeated Kaido, now he's stronger, so he needs a higher bounty, 5 billion. Just as a reference, 5 billion, that was the bounty, a bit more, that was the bounty of Whitebeard, who was hailed the strongest of the Yonko for quite some time, at least in his prime. And that's pretty close to Goldie Roger, the person with the highest known bounty ever in the One Piece world. And that would have been a bounty higher than Shanks, higher than Blackbeard, higher than all of the other Yonko. So that would mean that Luffy would have been the person with the highest bounty. He would have been the person currently alive, confirmed alive. We don't know about Kaido and Big Mom, but he would be the currently confirmed living person with the highest bounty in the whole One Piece universe. And what kind of antagonist could Oda throw into the face of the reader and say, ta-da, the next big threat? it would be really, really, really hard to sell the next antagonist, the next adversary, as an exciting opponent for us readers if Luffy's bounty is already so high and we say, okay, his bounty is this high, so his strength is this high. His next opponent's bounty is only this high, so his strength is only this high. Ergo, thus, Luffy is stronger than his opponent, and that had never been the case in previous arcs in the whole story of One Piece. The Straw Hats had always gone in as slight underdogs, and I even made the theory that Luffy beat Kaido through group effort. It's not just about the message, it's not just about that it's hard to build a story if his bounty were that high. It's also that I believe his bounty being a reflection of his true strength. So saying 3 billion is his true strength, by that I mean I don't believe Luffy to be stronger than Kaido. Yes. So he beat Kaido? Yes. Is he stronger than Kaido? No. He beat him through group effort. He went into different rounds again and again and again. I made the example of popping a Senzu Bean like Dragon Ball style. If you have like Kaido, Luffy face one-on-one, fair and square, all out, I think even now with all of Luffy's power-ups, maybe even having a grip on his awakening, on Gear 5th, on Awakened Conqueror's Haki, I think still he is not quite on Kaido's level. Absolutely he's justified an emperor. Absolutely he can contend with Kaido, become other Yonko. I think he is close, very, very close to Shanks. But he is still not there where he is to give back his head, where he fulfilled his promise to Shanks that he gave in the very first chapter, that Luffy gave when he poked his cheek with a knife and declared himself becoming a pirate. Luffy got the head from Shanks, and I think he can't give back the head till the time he surpassed Shanks. And I don't even think he's ever gonna give back the head. He's gonna give the head to someone else, in the same fashion that Roger passed the hat to Shanks, Shanks passed the hat to Luffy, and Luffy's gonna pass the hat on. But the topic is bounties, not Luffy exclusively, but still coupled and tied to bounties is talking about power, because talking about bounties is talking about power scaling. So, is a bounty a representation of strength? I think yes, absolutely. Is it always a 100% accurate representation of strength? No. And I think you already see where this is going to go. Of course, I can't get around talking about Buggy the Clown. Buggy the Clown, he got appointed Yonko, his bounty outrageously high, and of course, maybe he has some hidden strength. I mean, I think it would be hilarious if we readers think like, oh, Buggy, he's like a joke character, but then Oda pulls like the 180 and like Uno reverse, like in the One Piece world, everyone thinks the Marines think he's strong, but actually no, we know he's weak. But actually, he truly is strong. I see that as an Oda thing to do, that the mangaka Oda might pull such a thing. Considering Buggy was on Roger's crew, he sailed with the Pirate King, and there's that scene where he survived a slash by Mihawk, and there had been the theory like, shouldn't a Haki infused cut by Mihawk have injured Buggy? Like, even if he has a devil fruit which naturally makes him resistant to being cut, shouldn't he have been cut? Because he's weak, right? He doesn't have haki, so he has no way to defend himself against someone who uses haki, someone as strong as Mihawk, someone as proficient a haki and sword fighter who we readers need to assume could effortlessly take down a joke character like Buggy. So maybe, but not just maybe, just a fringe theory just embedded into this video on the side. Maybe Buggy's bounty and him being a Yonko is justified. But let's assume for the insanity of this video and to make a point that there are characters who have a bounty that does not reflect their strength. There are characters which have a bounty that is blown out of proportion, either due to the world government, the Marines perceiving them a bigger threat than they are, and or them being not necessarily physically strong, but having a role which makes them dangerous to the world government. But on the other side, we have characters that seem docile, tame, at least in the eyes of the government, and have a bounty that is an underrepresentation of their true strength. The first person that comes to mind here for me is, of course, Chopper. So I want to transition over and talk about the bounties assigned to the Straw Hats. Particularly, I want to talk about the three bounties: Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei. So, in the past, I don't know where the term monster trio comes from, if it's a term that's established or comes from the manga itself, or if that's a term that's purely coined from the fandom. But usually in the past, up to Jinbei joining the Straw Hats, it had usually been that the three strongest opponents of the rivaling group, of the rivaling pirate group, of the rivaling antagonists, be that Sir Crocodile and his Barak works, be that in Skypiea Enel and his I don't know what he called them, but his priests, be that CP9, the higher ranking members. So usually it had been that the strongest opponents had been faced by the three strongest of the Straw Hats: Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. And most often their opponents had been the more serious ones, the more serious threats, who were built up as not fighting in a joking manner, but fighting more serious. While on the other hand, we have the opposite, the three weakest, the three joke characters: Usopp, Nami, and Chopper. But Chopper developed into quite a formidable opponent. We've seen him in his monster form slap Queen. In Wano Kuni, Queen is a totally different league. He's an opponent who was never in the league of Chopper, and he wasn't built up as they were not built up as a match. But even through Chopper didn't have a real dedicated fight in Wano Kuni, I think his role was just supposed to be a different one, and giving him also a dedicated fight would have blown up the chapter number even more, and would have made Wano Kuni even more blown up. And I think even Oda knew he needed to get the arc and the saga to a closure. So, but the point was, we did get a scene of Chopper slapping Queen in the face and making him spit some blood in that panel. But nevertheless, we always had those three weaker characters, and we had the three strongest characters: Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and then we had some characters that were kinda in the middle: Frankie, Robin, and Brooke. Um, they are strong, definitely, but they usually fought. They usually fought opponents that are not the top, the lead performers, the lead members, the lead antagonists. And now we have Jinbei joining the crew. Jinbei, a former Shichibukai, one of the 7 warlords, already had quite a high bounty before. And now that the Shichibukai system had been abolished, his title of a warlord had been revoked, he now has to be given a bounty that truthfully respects his actual power, at least to the reader, us, but also that makes sense in the in world of One Piece, seeing how many of the other former warlords, the Shichibukai, have gotten quite a beefy bounty. And now we have the situation that the 3 with the highest bounty in the crew are Luffy, Zoro, and not Sanji, Jinbei. And Zoro even remarks this with "Don't talk to number 4," calling Sanji simply number 4. And I think this is this bickering, this back and forth between those two, which is kind of the humor, the parody that makes up their dynamic. And this is unusual because this is not bickering. This is Oda presenting these bounties to us. He's the writer, he's the author. He comes up with the story and he comes up with the bounties. Of course, in the in-world of One Piece, it's the Marines that make the bounties, but it's a fictional story made by Eiichiro Oda, and bounties are chosen by him. It's his choice how high, how low a bounty is ultimately. And he chose to let Sanji come 4th, not 3rd, which is quite unusual. And looking back, there had been a time when Sanji had a higher bounty as Zoro, which was after Whole Cake Island, which was due to the fact that Zoro just didn't participate. He was not present. He couldn't receive a bounty raise. So we had a period of time where Luffy came 1st, Sanji came 2nd, and then Zoro came 3rd, which again made them was a reason for Sanji to remark on that. So now it turned around, and Sanji has even fallen on 4th place. And looking back, Luffy fought Kaido, Zoro fought King, and Sanji fought Queen. So obviously those 3, true to the pattern we had in previous arcs, they fought the 3 strongest of the opponents, of the antagonists. Jinbei fought one of the Tobi Roppo, one of the Flying 6. So based on that, shouldn't Sanji get a higher bounty than Jinbei? Well, yes. But also we never got a real depiction of Jinbei's strength. Where is Jinbei currently strength-wise? So we didn't see him struggle with his opponent even the slightest. He fought Who's Who was a former CP member, if I remember correctly, even CP9, and who, of course, depicted the mastery over the 6 techniques of the CP, the skipping on the air, and the finger pistol, the hardening of the body. And he applied these techniques in tandem with Haki. So a question to me had always been, which is I'm not gonna discuss further, but if it would be efficient, or if it wouldn't be efficient to make use of both the iron body, the I think it's called Tekai, or the CP9 guys use that technique to harden their body, make it hard like steel, in combination with haki, the armament haki. And what needs to be stated is that haki is described as a mental ability. It's mental fortitude and concentrating your mental abilities, while the techniques of the CP are purely physical abilities. They are mastery of the body. So both coming together, the iron body and the armament haki, in combination with the finger pistol technique, was depicted as a very, like, as a potentially very strong technique, probably peak physical combat in the One Piece world. At least that's what we've seen so far. But the moment Who's Who tried to finger pistol Jinbei and just broke his finger, and he was standing there with two broken fingers, and that was when the match was over. It didn't need the final punch from Jinbei to end the fight. For the reader, already the fight was over when Who's Who broke his two fingers trying to finger pistol Jinbei, and standing there with his two broken fingers in pain and anguish, and like, and then the shockwave punch, the Fishman karate punch that Jinbei gave, that was just a finisher. That was just the icing to send him flying. So we haven't seen Jinbei go to his fullest. We haven't seen him on his knees, sweating, breaking out into an inner dialogue that he has to pull himself together, that he has to get his SHIT together and pull through, that he overcomes his adversary, that he overcomes the situation and grows past his current limitations. So the bounty for Jinbei might absolutely justify. The question still is it justified that it's higher than Sanji's? I think it's hard to say where they are strength-wise. I think Oda deliberately had them be close to each other. Looking at specifically the three bounties, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, they are very, very close in high. There's just a few 100,000 or a million differentiating them. They're all above 1 billion. And interestingly, they're also all below other Yonko commanders' bounties, like Queen, King, Marco, and Rayleigh. So I think everything that I've said and that applied to Luffy also applies to these three, specifically Zoro and Sanji. I think both Zoro and Sanji, just as well as Luffy, as they're a bit of a younger generation, not a whole generation, but half a generation younger than Jinbei, and the next generation being always the one that surpasses the previous one, handing the torch to the next one. And shonen meaning boys, and it's kind of the travel of a boy growing to a man. It's the road, it's Luffy's road from becoming an average boy to the pirate king. It's Zoro's road, Zoro's journey to becoming the strongest swordsman, and it's Sanji's road to accepting his maybe family heritage and fulfilling his dream of finding the all blue and maybe making the biggest banquet and the biggest dish in the grandest, biggest, most delicious dish in the history of One Piece or whatever. But either way, I think all these three characters have potential to grow, and just as I think 3 billion is not the final bounty for Luffy, he will surpass Shanks, he will surpass Blackbeard, and all others, I think Zoro ultimately will surpass Mihawk. His final bounty will most likely be a bounty higher than Mihawk's current bounty, which also means that Luffy's final bounty should be even bigger, maybe even bigger than Goldie Rogers. And I also think Sanji's final bounty will be a lot higher, possibly also in the 3 billion range. And will we ever get increases in bounty for the rest of the Straw Hats? Possibly, yes, but I think those two, Zoro and Sanji, will ultimately leave Jinbei behind. And I think this is a current this is like a screenshot. It's like a depiction of that moment. And I think in this current moment, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei are probably pretty close. They're pretty close in strength. Period. They will surpass Jinbei at some point, but the reason for Sanji being placed lower than Jinbei and Jinbei in between Zoro and Sanji, I think Oda knows about this. He knows his community, his fandom. It's a manga that's running for more than 25 years. He would be stupid to not register these things. And I think he's poking the community, the fandom a little bit, and I think he's probably enjoying that. He was probably laughing his ass off while he was drawing and writing that. Like that's gonna be hilarious. Like people in the comment section and on social media, they're gonna come at each other, like the Zoro fanboys and the Sanji fanboys. But yeah, that's what the story lived from. It's a community that keeps things hyped, and it's the fandom that supports like stories like these, that supports One Piece for over 20 years, for more than 25 years, keeps reading the story, keeps following week by week by week, and we enter the final phase of One Piece, and I think this was great. I think it's sometimes it's good to create some controversial and make people like fight, even if it's in a productive way, and this will lead into more engagement, more interest into the story. I still think Zoro is the number 2. I think Zoro is like a notch, like a cut above Sanji. And one thing that has been that signifies this for me the most is Zoro being a user of Conqueror's Haki. I think Zoro's role might change in the future. Who knows? But I think Zoro might take on a role very similar to Mihawk, stepping into Mihawk's feet, and Luffy kind of being a second coming or the next generation of Shanks, who's kind of the next generation of Roger. This whole reaching the torch down from generation to generation, each next generation succeeding, but also surpassing the previous one. In that fashion, I think Luffy follows into the footsteps of Shanks and follows into the footsteps of Roger, and Zoro follows into the footsteps of Mihawk. So with that parallel in mind, Mihawk and Shanks were pointed out to have a rivalry, but a very friendly rivalry, and I see that in a long-term future of One Piece coming true for Luffy and Zoro as well. Zoro at some point potentially leaving the Straw Hats for his own search of becoming the best, and for the pure enjoyment in contesting with the best, the strongest, because what can be once you are the strongest swordsman in the world, being the strongest in the world. So, my personal ranking, to finish this up, not based on bounty, but how I feel the Straw Hats are in terms of power, strengths. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei. But I think, again, I repeat myself, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei all being very, very, very close. But I think in the future, Zoro and Sanji will leave Jinbei behind, and it will show that those two, just as Robin stated, are the wings of the Pirate King. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope I could keep your enjoyment and your interest. So, turned out longer again than I thought. But thanks for tuning in, and see you. Bye.